Hello, everybody. How are you doing? It is time that we go on to our next lesson. So, for 52 short stories, let's talk about theme. The philosopher Plato, he once argued that storytellers should be banned because he thought that because that storytellers usually are always writing about themes. Now, granted, of course, there are times they don't, but most of the time, before you write a story, especially, a book or a play or something like that, you are going to really spend a lot of time thinking about theme, about what you really want to say about the world, about things that maybe need to change, about whatever your beliefs are, things like that, and you're going to use your story as a way to do that. And so, because this happens so often, Plato, he thought that people who tell stories are kind of dangerous because, they're not necessarily directly telling people what are their beliefs or what are their ideas, but they're using characters and they're using stories and they're making it entertaining. So, next thing you know, everybody is going to agree with whatever your argument or your ideas are. So, you're doing it indirectly. It's not the same thing as somebody who's giving a lecture or telling everyone exactly what is my ideas. It's different. Storytellers, they don't do that. They show you their ideas. They do it indirectly. So because of that, he thought that these people were dangerous to society. So, and at the same time, like he was saying, those who tell the stories, they rule society. And that's why when you look at history, especially Western history, it always seems like everyone else is less than them and no one else is doing as well as they are because it's the way that they told the story. So when you're always telling the story from your point of view because you won in the history and you're the one telling the story, then you have control over the next generation because the next generation is going to read that history and they're going to read it from that point of view and they're going to say, you know what, this must be fact. When a lot of times history is not really necessarily fact, that's why it's his story. So it's a story and it's told from one point of view usually. So because of that, it's not necessarily fact, it's just point of view. So, I mean, granted, not that I'm saying that things in history are not true. I'm just saying that, it is biased. So, either way, so that is why those who tell the stories rule the world. And that's why when you read the history or you go to school most of the time, you come out feeling like, you know, that Western people did everything that it's possible and they're the greatest people. It's only when you look at more deeply into it that you find out, oh, okay, there was actually a lot more things that happened during this time period. So it's very important when you're reading history, especially, to look at it and say, and not just any history, even a news article. Like when you read a news article, you should not necessarily just take the story or the news as fact. You need to go back and say, what is this person's point of view? This is a conservative person? Is this a democratic person? What is their agenda? What is the reason that they're telling this point of view? So don't necessarily just take any news story that you hear as fact. You have to look at who's behind it, who's the person who wrote it. So it's always important to look at it, and then you can be like, okay, you know what, this is not somebody I want to listen to anyway. So, just be careful when you are listening to any story. But as for you, when you're writing the story, you also will have to tell what are your themes and what are your ideas. That is always going to be behind the story. So those are things you have to really think about carefully about what are your ideas about the world. Okay, so one of the things you also need to think about when you're writing is body language, which we haven't really gone over, but I'm going to try to see if we can go over a little bit here and there. Every once, every week or whatever we can. When you're writing a character, don't forget to also write body language because you don't want to just say that the person is agitated, the person is upset. You want to describe how it looks because don't forget, when you write a scene, you have to write how the scene would actually look if you're watching it. So how would it look? You would say maybe they're clearing their throat, their voice is wavering, they're turning away from others, they're flinching if someone touches them, they're sweating, they keep changing the subject, they're avoiding eye contact, or they're taking too long to answer the question. So things like that, think about what the person would be doing when you're writing. Um, how would they be acting? So don't just necessarily say how they would feel because, I mean, granted, you should talk about how the person feels, but you also have to show it. So when they say showing versus telling, that is what it is. So if you say they're agitated, you're telling. If you're saying they're clearing their throat, they're flinching, then you're showing it. So showing versus telling, very important when you're writing. All right, so the story we're going to talk about is the new guy or the new girl. So it could be, characters you'd have, or, it could be anything like a new relative, new friend, there's a new baby that's born, anything like that. You'd have a main character, like I said, new guy, new girl, and you probably have somebody that's the leader, and the leader would be the person who's the conflict in the story. Okay? So when you're talking about conflict with a new person, you would have the conflict would be, suppose you're the leader and you see this new person comes. Maybe this person is going to be the new leader that comes there. Maybe they're a potential new leader. This person, they're smarter than you, they're faster, they're stronger. If it's a girl, probably better looking. Maybe they have more allies. Maybe it's just a jealousy thing. Or it could be that the new person is very strange and they seem very dangerous, like a monster. There's something wrong with them that makes you seem like this person is not somebody that needs to be trusted. Either way, the leader does not like this person. Whoever they are, they don't like them. Okay? So you have the goal that the new person wants to join the group and there's something suspicious about him. Disaster, the leader wants to get rid of them. Reaction, main character wants to help. Dilemma, how would the new girl or new guy, new girl contribute and how would the main character benefit from them? Decision, the main character decides to support the new girl or the new guy. Okay? So this story, it could happen, in any situation. Just think about what would the situation be like. If it would be like a school setting, it could be a work setting. Suppose it's like a new manager that comes to the place. Suppose it's a new student that would come. Um, it could be just any type of group setting. For example, suppose you're going to have a group of a Somali student association group. Suppose that the students, you have a new student who comes to the place and they have a lot of new ideas and a lot of new things they want to do. And in the back of their head, they're just thinking, like, hey, I actually want to be the new president of the Somali Student Association. So they try their best to do that. And of course, the president knows that that's what the agenda that this person has. So just think about how they're probably not going to like each other whatsoever. But in the end, maybe what's going to end up happening is that, one of the other group members that's there decides to support this new person because at the end of the day, we're all Somali. This is our association meeting, and everybody just needs to try to get along. And maybe this new person, they have good ideas, so we should not necessarily kick them out of the group yet. Anyways, let's give them a chance, right? All right, so go ahead and write your outline for your 6 steps that will happen in 6 minutes, 1 hour, or 6 hours. Go ahead and write 100 to 200 words for each step of your story. So just a little bit, little bit, little bit. So although, of course, if you get a little bit behind, it's okay. I understand this week I'm a little bit behind since we had a family wedding. So, but hopefully I can catch up today with my writing. I will try my best. So, all right, so everybody, so write a short story every week. It's not possible to write 52 bad short stories in a row.